Hello, my divine being, and welcome to this week's episode of Confessions of a New Age Goddess. As always, I'm the New Age Goddess herself, Melissa. Joining me today is Jen Thomas. Jen is an intuitive coach, spiritual mentor, angel guide, NLP practitioner, and TEDx speaker. So, Jen, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me onto this episode. I'm so happy to be here and really excited to share, hopefully, loads of really helpful, supportive stuff to your audience.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to have you here as well. And Jen, where are you joining us from?
So as I'm sure you can hear from my accent, I'm based in England. I am in the south of England, probably an hour west of London.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. And then if you could kind of do a little intro yourself, kind of explain a little bit what you do, your mission, and etc.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So as you brilliantly introduced me, my name's Jen, and I'm an intuitive coach and I'm a spiritual mentor to business women. So I help women in business to work with their intuition, clear their BS stories that they tell themselves, and create crystal clear strategies for success through those methods. I'm a huge advocate of working with emotions in business, and that I'm sure we'll come onto it in more detail later, but that is why I was selected to give a TEDx talk, which was all about working with emotion in business and the value of that. So I left my corporate career. I had 20 years in the corporate space in marketing, and I left that 6 years ago now, almost to the day actually.
Oh, wow.
To set up my own coaching business. I retrained as an NLP practitioner and personal performance coach. And I set up my own business in order to lead and teach business from heart energy, and to really encourage business leaders to be working with that heart energy and to be working from a place of love, kindness, and compassion as our greatest strength. And so by doing, prioritizing people over profit. And another very key aspect to my mission in the work that I do is helping to essentially rebalance humanity and help to save our Mother Earth. That is my whole purpose and mission in life, essentially. And I do this through my work, but I'm also a nature empath. And so I communicate with animals and nature as well, and receive their guidance on how we can live a much more symbiotic, balanced life.
Yeah, and really the whole Mother Gaia thing really did speak to me, because it's kind of something that I'm constantly mindful of. I mean, we all know about recycling and things like that, but that's part of it. That's part of it, just being mindful, just honoring it. Even let's say you're gardening and you grow a vegetable and you eat it, just like honoring that, hey, the earth gave me that, the elements gave me that. It's all, we're all connected and we are part of it. So that really spoke to me, just to kind of, because I feel like people who kind of keep that in back of mind, they have a whole different perspective of the world. So that's greatly important to me. And also the piece about, spiritually minded in your business, that's everything too, because I just feel like that when you're not spiritually minded in the workplace or in your business, that's when you get burnt out. That's when maybe you even self-sabotage. I've done it. There's been times where, I didn't agree with the mission of the company, and maybe, I was happy to do my role, but when I looked at it from an outer perspective, then it kind of ruined it for me, So I think to really have that as the focus, the spirituality, and working from the heart center, as you described, it changes everything. Because also then if you're working from that space, you're more likely to maybe give input that you wouldn't have previously because you feel comfortable, or you're maybe even able to go a little bit further than you would, a little bit outside of the job description, because you believe so strongly in the company's mission, their vision, and etc. So these are things that I feel like should really be the foundation of any type of entity, but it's not always so. Okay, great. And then branching off of that, due to the fact that you are using spirituality for business to help other women, companies, etc., what was, you did say that you're an angel communicator. What was your first experience communicating with angels? What did that look like?
Oh, thank you for asking. It was such a, I'll be honest with you, at the time, it was such a terrifying experience. I didn't know what to do with it. Looking back at it with what I know now, it was an incredibly beautiful experience. But I was aged 14, and I remember it so clearly. It was like a Friday night, and I was in bed. My best friend was staying over. We were having a sleepover, and we'd gone to sleep, and it was in that status of when you're just between awake and asleep. And I was suddenly aware of this huge blue light at the end of my bed. And a voice just called out my name, which I now know to be Archangel Michael.
Mm.
And he called out my name in this, just angelic voices is so hard to describe, I think, but just the most beautiful voice. And man, did I pay attention to it. And all he did was call out my name rather. And I know now that that was to awaken me. It was to spiritually awaken me. And like I'm sure many of your listeners, I lived in a very small, isolated town, really. And I did talk to my best friend about it at the time. I think, bless her, she was very, very sweet at the time. But I didn't have anybody to really talk to about that. And I've got brothers. I don't have didn't grow up with my sister, so in a very patriarchal environment, so it wasn't an easy conversation to have. I did share a couple of things with my mum, but not a lot. So essentially I suppressed it. I suppressed my gifts. And I viewed them as burdens at that time because I was experiencing deep premonitions that were very disturbing and very difficult for me to handle, particularly at that age. And, just being around my school friends, knowing what they were all thinking and feeling and not being able to really share that was a very, really difficult, challenging time. So I suppressed it. So then my next true angelic experience didn't happen until 2015, so 6 years ago, almost to the day. Yeah, it was always there in the background. It was always there in the background. But again, I'm sure, like a lot of your listeners, and you touched upon it a few minutes ago, I experienced a deep burnout, and I was very broken. And I was sat in my bed again. It's like, it always happens when you're in your bed, right? Sat upright in my bed, and I just called out to the universe, please help me, please help me. And my bedroom was just filled with angels.
Wow.
The only way I can describe it. It was, I'm quite emotional talking about it now. It was, an incredibly beautiful connection and experience, and I haven't looked back for a day since.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's interesting because a lot of people I've spoken to who do communicate with guides, angels, they do say, oh, well, it happened to me when I was a kid, and then I shut it down, and then it came again when I needed it most, So it's kind of, I feel like it's almost like breadcrumbing, like
that's such a awesome way to put it.
Like you had it, but then you really, and I understand as a child, as a teenager, you don't have that same self-awareness, that understanding. Things can seem scarier from a child's point of view. So then it kind of comes back to you full throttle when you are able to handle it as an adult. And then you really know what to do with it. Because I don't think I mean, there are some 14-year-old business owners, but not as many as adults. So it's kind of like it
Right.
came to you at the right time. So you knew what to do with it. You knew how to process it from an adult perspective. Yeah, so I totally understand that. And yeah, I know when I started getting messages too, I was also frightened. And it is like, yeah, I don't know how to describe this voice. It's like this very like calm voice, but it's still, for me at least, it was still strong.
You're very, yeah. I think that's what made me sit bolt upright
Yeah.
to be like, whoa, what's that?
Mhm. It's just so
Yeah.
like I cannot compare it to something else. It's new. It's something so
Mm,
new. So you're just like,
mm.
whoa, okay. But yeah, I think that's so important. And it's so great that you have that gift. You're able to tap into it because it really helps with discernment too. Because I think a lot of times people, even in business, they're maybe not confident. They don't know if they're on the right path, if they're making the right decision. But when you have that higher guidance, it's just so clear. And then you know what to do. Maybe it's not something you really want to do, but you really know what to
Yeah.
do. So that helps quite a bit.
Well, yeah, 100%, because it's precisely that brought me to do the work that I do now.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it was receiving that high guidance and bringing it into my business that gave me the surety and the clarity and my soul path, and for me to essentially come out of my spiritual closet that I'd been hiding in for the last few years. And when I did that, my business tripled, and it tripled in a pandemic year.
Yeah,
And that
which is
was
not an
all
easy thing.
due to that guidance, right? When you surrender and trust in it, oh, the magic just happens, right?
Yeah, I think anytime that I've taken a big risk, um, I was supported. I was supported maybe if something even fell through and you're like, oh no, I took this big risk and it didn't work out, but then you're supported maybe in a different way, not always the way you think it's going to happen, but you
Yeah.
know, the
In
universe.
fact, rarely in the way you think it's going to
Yeah, yeah, we're
happen.
dibs on that, agreed. But I think the universe does support you because it's like, well, this person did take the risk. They did do the things, they did make themselves vulnerable. So it will be rewarded in the best way, in the
Yeah.
best way. Okay, great. And then how did you, so you talked about how, you were able to receive messages, receive guidance, but how did you really know that that's something that's connected with business? Because these are two different worlds.
Yeah. And I think it's such a great question to ask, because I had walked exactly that kind of separate path. I had my spiritual practice over here that was just for me, and my business over here. And yeah, it was just that kind of classic light bulb, obvious moment, sat in meditation of, why do I not just bring the two of these together? Why am I not receiving and asking for guidance and clarity on my business and my strategies? Like, it just suddenly seemed like the most obvious thing to do. So I did.
Yeah, it seems like it's just something that kind of comes naturally, not too much using the mental head, but it's just something, well, it's a natural fit. I can do both. Like
Right.
if I
And
know how to do both, I'm gonna do it, right?
yeah. And I think it was also that, just the importance of bringing the two together, actually, of because your business, whether it's your own business, or whether you're a manager, or whether you're an employee, the work that you do is an extension of you,
Yes.
has your energy in it. Whatever you're doing, it is connected to your heart energy and your soul signature. So it makes even more sense to me that we must blend the two. If anything, it's kind of crazy that we keep them separate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so hence now why that's exactly what I teach people to do.
Yes. And I think a lot of people, especially when they're not fond of their job, they try to keep it separate because they're like, oh, well, this is just something I have to get through. and then I can, on the weekend, whatever, do my own little
Yeah.
thing. And that's when you're really going to get drained. That's when you're really going to have this disconnect like you described, because it's kind of like, well, I have to shut down a certain part of myself in order to blend in with this community,
Right.
right?
And it's exhausting to conform in that way. That, I mean, that's ultimately what led to my breakdown, because I was pretending to be somebody that I truly wasn't, and hide, as you say, hiding that most beautiful and most powerful part of myself, keeping it hidden. Because there's I use this quote actually a lot with my clients: never dim your light in order to allow somebody else's to shine brighter. And essentially, that's what I
Mhm.
did every single day, just kept myself hidden, kept my inner light hidden in order that everybody else around me could shine brightly.
Yeah, well put, well put. And another thing too is I think some people that are a little bit more brave, or they've been doing it, been in the spiritual community a little bit longer, they kind of want to express that part of themselves, but
Mm.
it's, I can't, it's not like I can go on, a career website and be like, job in spirituality that, is a 9 to 5. It's not, that's not always so easy.
Yeah. Do you
So
know, maybe someday soon though, right?
oh my God, sign me up.
Awesome.
Yes. Yes, I would love that. But, it's not always so easy. So it's kind of like, hey, maybe I want to bring this into the workplace, but I don't know how. Or it
Mhm.
might make my job more difficult, or people might not take me seriously, which is really, other people's issue, but it is a concern. I mean, even myself, when I had office jobs, I would bring in spirituality as much as I could. And it was difficult, but once people kind of warmed up to it, then it was almost applauded, but only in certain ways. So, for example, I would host like a monthly meditation class. That was something people can wrap their
Beautiful.
heads around, that was applauded, you know. But if I started with a little bit more than that, then it was too much. So you kind of had to do it gradually, but
Yeah.
even that wasn't enough for me to fully express myself.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I think, with your audience, whether they are your work colleagues, your family, your friends, your clients, you have to meet them where they're at,
Yeah.
right? And then, essentially you're building that like, know, and trust relationship little by little. So, yeah, so try not to throw all your unicorns and crystals at them all at once.
Yeah.
Maybe, as you say, it's a mindfulness practice and a meditation, or a walking, spending time out in nature, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And even I'm glad, I was just going to bring up crystals. I'm glad you said that. Because it's so exhausting to try to explain to someone, hey, you told me you're having this issue, this crystal might help you. And them coming at me and saying, well, I'm not going to use a rock. Rocks don't do anything. It's very, it's so draining.
Yeah.
So it is really about finding that audience. I've always been a big advocate for finding that community. Other people, maybe they do a different modality than you, but we're still under the same umbrella. We're still at least, able to hear each other from that ear. And it makes all the difference, because then I can brainstorm. And then I'm in a safe space to express myself. And then I don't have to cover up or wear these masks that are not me.
Yeah, that's so true. Because, like, as we know, like our intuitive senses sit in our right brain hemisphere with all our creativity and all our, ideas and inspiration. So when we are set free to explore that, oh my goodness, the innovation that comes from us as a community of light workers, I truly believe can change the world.
Oh, it definitely can, without a doubt. And I think that's kind of one of the main purposes, one of the main missions is, I express it this way, you express it that way. And then it turns into this one united thing, because we are one. And it just kind of lifts up everybody. And then, that also certain lower energies are going to fall off too. And that's okay. That's all part of the process.
Yeah. Or they rise up to meet us.
Or they rise up.
Right.
Everyone
Yeah.
has a choice. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
one of two ways. So yeah, either way, either way, we're elevating, and that's kind of the whole purpose. But
100%.
I always do enjoy to see it expressed in different ways.
Yeah,
Because we're
beautiful.
all different types of learners. We all see things differently. We all have different talents. So if it was expressed one way, it might not resonate with me, that one way. So yes, I think that's vital that there's all these different modalities and experiences. And even communicating with guides, let's say, I mean, I do it differently than you do it, that kind of thing, but we're still
Right.
getting the message, which is the important part at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great. And then I mean, you did tell us you're a TEDx speaker and it was about business and success. Could you just highlight a little bit of that speech with the audience?
Yeah, sure. So it's called Putting Emotion Back in Business. And if your audience are interested in watching it, it's a 10-minute talk it's on YouTube, so you can find it there. And I didn't share this with anybody at the time, but now I do the work that I do and I'm super proud of it. I channeled that entire talk. My guides gave it to me. They aligned the whole application process. They wrote the application for me.
Wow.
I read it afterwards and was like, I did not write that. That's
Yeah.
really good. I didn't write that. And yeah, so I stood on that TEDx stage on that red spot and I spoke, the first 3 words I spoke were love, kindness, and compassion to 100 business people.
Wow.
And it was really talking about, I was pretty fresh still. It had only been 2 and a bit years that I'd been out of the corporate space. So my memory and experience of that was still very strong.
Mm.
So I was talking about how love is our greatest strength. And when we are focusing on profit and always therefore streamlining at businesses to or increase the bottom line, regardless of what happens to the people, actually then we're in stress, or now we would call it fear energy. And that is our greatest weakness. So if you have a business that is essentially founded on stress and fear energy, it has no future proofing possibility of success, certainly in the long term, maybe in the short term, but not in the long term. So with your core values being around love, kindness, and compassion for all, then your business has the absolute best possible chance of being a huge, wonderful success, because it is based on love energy and therefore supported by love energy. That's essentially what I talked about.
Yes. And I love that point because, of course, the energy if you have like loving energy as the foundation, of course, that's going to rise everything up, but also in the day-to-day tasks too. If I'm going to make a decision about something and, hey, this is a more earth-friendly option, I'm going to choose that even if it costs a little bit more money, because that's what a love vibration would do. Or, hey, maybe my coworker is really annoying, just being realistic. So maybe my coworker is really annoying me, but I'm looking at it through a love lens. I'm sympathetic. Maybe that person has, personal issue they're dealing with and is taking it out on me, whatever the situation may be. When you can kind of make these daily tasks through that love vibration, that's constantly building it up. It's constantly keeping it at that level. And then, yeah, you're less likely to make a mistake. You're less likely to do something that's going to hurt the business in the long term. And I think people don't see it from that standpoint. They're just kind of
Right.
like,
Because they're so focused on the money.
yeah,
If you, my view very much is, and I say this to my clients, if you're coming to work with me to make loads of money, I'm not the right coach for you.
yeah,
Right. It's so yes, you may make lots of money by working with me, by learning and focusing on the processes and the way that I teach, but that's the after effect.
Yeah.
Not the reason, not the purpose. So yeah, actually, you know, if a prospective client comes to me and wants to work in my program, and they tell me they're all about the money, 9.5 times out of 10 I'll say no to them,
Yeah, not
because
the
it's
ideal
just not
client.
right there. It's not the right energy, right?
Of course, of course. And oh, another thing I wanted to ask you too, because I'm always interested in this. So you said the speech, was channeled. You said I could tell I didn't write it, which you did, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, okay, how did you know it wasn't you? Is it because it was words Jen wouldn't use, or I'm just always curious about this.
Yeah, so I think it's such an important, valuable question, and my clients ask it all the time. Jen, how do I know what is guidance, and how do I know what is my ego? How do I know what is my higher self, and how do I know is me just making stuff up? Right.
Mhm.
And it's you said the word earlier, it's about discernment, but it's all the layers of work that we have to do in order to reach that clarity of discernment.
Mm,
Because something can feel good, but it can still be fed by our ego.
yes.
You know, something can feel good and exciting because somewhere over here the ego is saying, because it'll make loads of money and then we can go on holiday or whatever.
Mhm.
um so it's really sitting with it, spending time with something, and really, if you're going slow enough, which is what I encourage all my clients to do, to slow down, and you're checking in regularly with how you're feeling and what those feelings are and what they mean to you, discernment becomes so much easier.
Mm.
So, and then you can really see the difference between, or feel the difference, or hear the difference, depending on your preferred modality. What is soul and higher self, and what is ego and you know, personality constructs coming through.
Yeah, that's one of the best explanations I've heard for it. Um, because
Thank you.
yeah, really, because a lot of people are like, oh, because I hear it, they use one of the clair senses, which is fine. But they don't really get into the meat of it of, oh, I know that's not my ego. I know it's discernment. That really helps out a lot too. I know even when I'm channeling something, I know it's not me because they use words that Melissa would never use because they're words that were popular maybe in the 1700s. Like
Right.
they're words, but
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
using that word on the daily. Or what they do is they'll give me a word and it's not really a word, but it's like they it's so hard to explain. It's like they put two words together so it
Hmm.
gives it double meaning, or I'll see it in my mind spelled a different way so that it's like, oh, it's they're saying this but they're meaning this, so I can use it in two different ways. So it's just always interesting how it comes across differently for different people. And you're I like how you expressed the feeling of it, sitting with it, all of the work that would really need to happen in order to even get to that level. Because it wasn't
Right.
just mental thinking. It's a whole other thing that the guides have gotten to that level and they're sharing it with you.
Exactly. And it takes practice, right? Like you and I know we didn't just sit in meditation and
Mhm.
go, right, I'm ready to receive.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I
in it
know.
came, ta-da. It's like working a muscle, isn't it? And it takes
Mhm.
practice, and it takes regular practice and consistent practice. And the easiest way I found that out was by not doing it.
Mm.
And
Or-
then you've been doing it for a few weeks or months and what have you, and then you're just like, nah, I've got this, I'm all good. Just or life just gets busy and you get caught up, and then you notice the fear energy start to bubble up, and that ego starts getting quite shouty and quite loud, and you start noticing internal conversations like, you should be doing this,
Mm,
what about this? You haven't done this. And it's, you know, very critical and very loud. That is not a voice of love, as we know.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, it takes practice and the work, but it's so worth it, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And I think me myself, I didn't start getting very clear messages until I really trusted myself, until I really made myself vulnerable. And I said, I don't care if this message sounds crazy. This is very much so what I am feeling. So I'm going to share it with, my client, whomever. And that's when you get the most clear messages, I think. And you realize, hey, if I keep tapping into that feeling, it is a feeling of vulnerability too, to make
Mm,
yourself, known in that way. Yeah, the vulnerability, the trust, putting the ego aside. Hey, I know that sounds really good. Maybe that's what I want to hear, but I know that's not the correct voice to be listening to. That makes all the difference. And I think people think, yeah, it is just sitting there and receiving, but it's doing the emotional work to be a clear conduit to receive. That's a whole part of it too.
yeah, perfectly put, perfectly put. Love that.
Yeah, it's layers. Um,
Oh, so many layers.
yes, yes. Okay, great. So, just if someone wanted to work with you, what would that look like? What would working with Jen Thomas on my business and spirituality look like?
Well, the best way to work with me is through my Soulpreneurs Club program. So not only do you get me, but you get a community of
Mm.
other business women just like you. Which and that community support, I know that, you know, my clients all come together and they love it and really thrive on it. So, but probably the easiest way to connect with me and, you know, experience what it's like to work with me for free is in my free Facebook group, which is called Soulpreneurs Sanctuary,
Mm.
where I give live guidance every week. I'm also channeling nature's wisdom
Yeah.
messages as a nature empath. So animals are coming through to me with business guidance, and it's awesome. It's really awesome.
Cool.
They're so wise. Um, and I'm launching in the next couple of weeks a spiritual school as well. So we'll have a business focus, and there'll be all the different kind of aspects and teachings around spirituality to help you in your business and obviously your life too. But yeah, then potentially if that's something of interest, then Soulpreneurs Club is where I teach really from the basics of how to communicate through heart energy and to connect with the universe. And then I take you all the way through on an 11 module program, all the way up to being able to sit and write your own business plans and marketing strategies with your soul team. And then your world just becomes a very beautiful, magical place.
Yes, and I think again, combining the two is so important because I've met a lot of business coaches and yeah, they can help you write a business plan. Cool. It's necessary. We need it. But and then you find the spiritual life coach and then they help you more with, like you said, discernment, all of that kind of stuff. But to marry the two, this is so
Mhm.
vital. This is something you don't see as much as the two separate entities. And you can't. If I'm going to, let's say, a business coach and a life coach, where do I marry the two together? Is it up to me? That's difficult.
Right. And confusing, so
Mm.
confusing.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then what types of, I know you work with women, what types of businesses do they own or do they work at? Is it pretty much a mixed bag?
Um, a fairly mixed bag. They're all kind of coaching and well-being
Okay.
therapists of some description. That said, I've got a jeweler and
Hmm.
a couple of photographers as well, so that it can be, you know, the creative kind of
Mm,
businesses too. And yeah, a couple of people who are employed, their managers, so they're coming in to learn how to manage and work with their teams with more heart energy.
Yeah, I was just curious because you never know if like a big CEO of a company really does have a spiritual side. They've just been hiding it, and they need
Right,
help with that.
right. Yeah, you'd go into their office and like just happen to be looking for a pen or something in their desk drawer and go, oh, they've got crystals.
Oh,
Like
yes.
magic. I'd love that.
Yeah, I remember, yeah, when I had a desk job, I had obsidian on my desk, and I had plants, and I put the crystals in the plants, all this kind of stuff, and I had like essential oil diffuser, and like people could tell. They're like,
Yeah.
something's going on here. I don't know what, but something, you know.
It was because you sat there in your unicorn onesie, really, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So I stood out, and they're like, okay, something's up with her. Okay. And then I guess like in closing, is there anything we didn't get to? I know we could talk for hours, but is there anything we didn't get to, some key takeaways that you really want to share?
I just think for people, just please know that whoever you are and however you're feeling, you are not alone. You are
Mm,
not alone. And no matter how mainstream you think you are and your life is, and how inaccessible this currently seems to you, please know I've been there. Many of us have been, but there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of us standing up and speaking our truth and shining our light. And I encourage you and invite you to do the same for you, because it is the most liberating, freeing feeling you can ever gift yourself.
yes, being your authentic self, that really is your gift to the world, because it is a gift, and it's something that I think is meant to be shared. So
Yeah,
let's share it.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yes. And then, Jen, where else can we find you? Any links, websites? Of course, I'll link it in the show notes, but if you want to announce it to our listeners.
Yeah, sure. So on Insta, I'm at Revitalize Coaching, but I'm British, so it's Revitalize with an S, not
Got it.
a Z. Okay. And yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as Jen Thomas, and you can find I have a Facebook page, Revitalize Coaching as well, but Soulpreneur Sanctuary is my Facebook group where it all happens.
That's where the magic is.
That's where the magic is, right?
Okay, great. Awesome. All right. So, this is just another great example on how spirituality and the use of different methods and teachings can really make great changes in your daily life. As always, if you are looking for a way to relieve stress or anxious thoughts, or looking to gain some clarity, you can always book a Reiki energy healing or Akashic Records reading session with me at thenewagegoddess.com. Much love and namaste.